Hey everybody, we're here at Hope Slide just outside Hope, BC, and I just want to talk to you about the top things we've seen happening in the world of RVing in 2025. Let's talk about the top issues in 2025 in the world of RVing. Well, of course, I have to start with the new administration in the White House. It's changed things at the border and it's changed things at the national parks. Now, one of the things that's happened is they've started enforcing the rules at the border very strongly. There was a lot of rules that they were flexible on, especially when it came to Canadians. This had to do with registration, had to do with fingerprinting, and that's now changed. So of course that's led to a reduction in snowbirds and travelers coming from Canada down to the US. And another example of sort of the tighter restrictions and the more by the book procedures they're doing at the border. There's been a great example where a couple was trying to export their big Class A RV down to the States to sell it down in Arizona. And when they were exporting it at the US border, I guess the VIN number wasn't in the right place. And the cost of that, they're getting a $600,000 fine and they got their RV confiscated.
A couple from Canada who bought an RV that cost more than $1.3 million, and they've hit a problem with the government being involved. And the government we're talking about here is the US government. But again, they're from Canada. They bought a 2022 Newmar King Air 4531 for no less than $1.35 million. But they decided to sell it. Now that you're importing something into America, more scrutiny happens. At the border, an officer said your broker's filled out the wrong documents. This vehicle is not compliant for importation. I think the stickers are fraudulent. Now, here's the problem. This thing came from America. Newmar is located in Indiana. Brian and an official NHTSA inspector started to look for the vehicle's vehicle identification number to ensure that everything was in order, but they couldn't find one anywhere on the chassis. Meanwhile, Brian contacts the president of Newmar. The guy from Newmar asks the inspector, well, where should we put the stickers? The inspector told them, you're the manufacturer. It's not my job to educate you on how to manufacture your vehicle. In the meantime, Brian received a notice of penalty from the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, for $660,000. $660,000 for trying to cross without a compliant vehicle.
And then of course, we've seen workforce reductions at the parks. At not just the parks, but at BLM land. We've seen it at the national recreation areas. Now the parks have been affected, but it's not quite that bad depending on what park you're at or needing to go to. And although I talked about this in another video that I'll link to right here, the national parks are now going to be charging for their most popular parks $100 per person per day if you're not a US resident. Now let's talk about just a few of the other issues outside of like borders and national park fees and stuff. There's some negatives and there's some positives about the new administration coming in, right? Like everything, there's always two sides to the coin. Out there in BLM land, that's the Bureau of Land Management land down in the States, you should expect potentially some more mining operations, some more federal projects, infrastructure projects, extraction of resources. To be honest, up here in Canada, it's a common sight when you go out into the rural parts of Canada. The only thing you really see, and really the only reason those roads and railways are there sometimes, is to facilitate the resource extraction, be it oil, trees, copper, coal, all kinds of things up here. And in fact leads to really good RV infrastructure if you want to be an RVer, because anything built for trucks, you can use for RVs. So with those BLM uses that you might see more of, you also might see more access, right? Because of the funding cuts, you're likely seeing slightly longer response times to dealing with floods and natural disasters within the parks. To see more about the effects on the parks, I'd go to the 2025 roundup that RV Miles did. Jason Epperstein covers this, and really with his park coverage, He's really a better subject matter expert on this. Now, as energy and insurance costs and other costs continue to rise from 25 and into 26, this is leading to higher camping rates. So the other option with private campsites, those are starting to increase more and more. I'm really surprised at some of the fees you see coming out of campsites these days. I've been watching a lot of YouTubers talking about how much they paid for a site when they left, and really it's just amazing what a simple little campsite now can run you 50, 60 US dollars. But there are other things. One of the things that's really come up this year, it was happening last year, but it's a lot more apparent now, is pandemic buyers, people who bought RVs like me during the pandemic, have found that it's very hard to liquidate that RV and not take a loss. That's because prices were going up so much during the pandemic. So of course everyone bought RVs when they were at peak price during the pandemic, paying above market rate sometimes. And now we're seeing a much more flexible, negotiable price on RVs. The market's gotten softer. So people aren't gonna go buy your used RV if it costs the same price as a new RV they can go get off the lot today. It's not exactly the same price, but close enough that most of the people who, like me, who bought RVs and want to sell them are either upside down on their loan or there's just no way they're going to be able to make money. Now, on the positive side with the economy and all that is we're seeing softer RV prices. So you're going to be able to get better deals as the market sort of reset post-COVID, post sort of economic downturn. We're seeing this new RV demand kind of cool down. And so the inventories are really high and that's driving prices down. Again, this leads towards people also being trapped in any RVs they bought during the pandemic. And if you do sell it, you're selling it at a bigger loss than you ever would have. People always say they sold their RV at a loss. To be honest, almost everybody sells their RV at a loss. It's a depreciating asset, but the loss is much, much bigger if you bought it in 2022, like me, and you try to sell it now, which I can't. So as interest rates will probably continue to stay down or go down, we're going to see the RV prices at a depressed rate or a little more of a buyer's market. This is going to be a great time to buy RVs if you haven't gotten in. And if you bought an RV a couple of years ago, you might want to what we call sweat out the asset and basically hold on to it for a little longer, extract more of the value from it, because selling it, you're going to lose that value right then and there. Of course, sometimes you need to trade it in to get what you want, and you might just need to eat the cost. And hey, nobody buys an RV to make money. Gas prices have continued to come down and be maintained at lower numbers, and it's coming down even lower. Now, of course, lower gas prices are usually combined with like lower economic activity worldwide. So I'm not going to get into an economics class here, but that's a great thing for the pocket. It's a great thing for an RVer who wants to go out. It's usually a bad sign for the economy when gas prices are going down. So we'll see how that works out in the coming 2026. But that lower gas is giving people the opportunity to go longer distance and really extract more usefulness out of that RV they bought. And that's a good thing for RVers. As the economy is expanding and more infrastructure is getting out there, there are more RV parks out there. There's a few more truck stops out there, travel plazas, dump stations that are growing out there. Not everywhere, but we are seeing it out there. And so hopefully we see more of that growth in the coming year. Of course, this has been going on more and more, but we saw a big explosion this year in people installing custom handles on their trailer and RV doors. A lot of these RV doors from Lippert, they're solid doors, and really, I don't see too many broken handles. I've seen a couple, but they always feel a little soft, and people are scared to yank that door shut with that little handle. A lot of people have just installed their own handles. People have done it different ways. I can't say I endorse one method or the other. We are talking about doing it ourselves. It's not necessarily that the handle is too weak or anything. It's that RVs sort of, move around a little bit. They shift. And so sometimes, at certain times, you go to close your door, whether it's cold or hot, and the door doesn't quite close perfectly, or you got to slam it shut. This is why when you're at RV parks, you always hear those doors shut. Unfortunately, sometimes you got to slam your RV door shut, and you don't want to keep pulling that little plastic tab. So people, again, are installing these handles. We'll probably be doing so in 2026. I just haven't gotten a handle to do it and put it on the list of things that I need to do with my trailer. And you know that part in your screen door that slides back and forth? You can actually put a pop socket, one of those little adhesive things you put on the back of an iPhone. You put it there, and it makes it easier to open and close it. If you've installed your own handle, comment below, let me know about it. It seems to be a common trend. 2025 really saw the introduction of electrified trailers and electrified RVs, sometimes all electric systems, sometimes hybrid. Now, again, with the new administration and kind of the move away from, we're sort of at peak electrification for a little while, I expect that we're not going to see a huge amount of growth except things that are already in the pipeline coming out over the next year. But if you look at things like the Pebble, basically the idea is these RVs can have extra battery power. Some of them are even self-propelling for parking and docking and undocking. Some of them allow you to actually bring extra power. There was this idea of a sled. I have to look it up here now that I'm talking about it. But this idea of having an interim sort of dolly between the trailer and the truck, and that is basically a big battery pack that helps power the whole thing along. So your electric truck, in theory, even though they're going away in a lot of ways, you can have this electric battery pack dolly in the back that's pulling the trailer along and giving you the added basically capacity or distance, depending on how you look at it, by adding electrical capacity to your towing rig when you're towing your RV. There's also talks of having extra sleds of batteries in the trailer so that it can help power the truck or can provide some extra propulsion to the truck as it's driving along. Helper wheels, if you will. I think it's all really cool ideas. I don't think that electrification is the way to go for everybody, but I think there's a lot of folks who don't travel very far. I still think we'll see growth in electrification, just not maybe at the forced, curve that it was getting imposed on everybody. There is a market for it, just like Apple products. Not everyone's going to use them, but there's clearly a market for it. So I expect to see more of these options coming in 2026, but I do think it's going to plateau a little bit as we move back to sort of hybrid and gas-based solutions. Wonder if they'll loosen up on those gas can laws. Everybody in the States hates all those gas cans. Up here, we've just got the simple old-fashioned kind. And maybe it's just me noticing, but I'm seeing a lot more off-road trailers getting out there. We're seeing these off-road trailers that are basically like teardrop trailers, but they're made for off-roading. They don't have bathrooms, which is why I will never buy one, but they're becoming more and more popular. And it feels to me we almost need to come up with a new class name for this style of RV that we're seeing more and more of. I did a video on one, I'll put a link to it right here, where I did a deep dive into how these things are being built out. They're not really travel trailers. They're not exactly teardrop trailers. I mean, I guess we can just call them off-road trailers. But the idea here is that they're made for you to still be kind of in a bear-proof bed at night, bear-resistant bed at least. And you can have the kitchen close up at night so that your food and stuff is in a safe, hard-sided kind of environment. But you're still basically camping just in a hard-sided tent that you tow along. And of course that brings extra infrastructure, power. They don't have bathrooms usually, but they do have water tanks on board, so you can use a sink, wash your hands, make coffee. It really brings some of the comforts, but you're still camping. There's no way around it. When you have an off-road trailer, you are subject to the outside, right? If it's raining, you're going to be dealing with a rainy day. These things are more like bedrooms and kitchens and not necessarily living rooms, like those of us with full-size RVs. And the biggest trend in 2025 was the Stanley Cup of sewer hose accessories.
I have been trying to get my hands on one of these for quite a while.
One of the hottest RV accessories of 2025, this sewer lock from our friends over at Campco.
And it's a product that everybody and their brother's trying to get.
I bought one, this guy. They're really hard to get.
Their Rhino line of sewer accessories.
It is the Campco Rhino RV Sewer Adapter Pro.
The Campco Rhino RV Sewer Adapter Pro Clear Sewer Hose Elbow with the drain lock adapter. That's right. Campco put out this new sewer elbow attachment that had a locking handle, because a lot of times you go into RV sites and the good ones have a nice threaded sewer hole, right, that you can just screw in your adapter to and get a decent seal and keep the smells away. But sometimes you just get some where you have to drop it in and throw a rock on top. They're just plastic tubes with no threading, and this is supposed to solve all those. You can put it in the threaded ones, or you can just stick it in any old one, and theoretically this clamp is supposed to spread it and make it lock into the hole. Everyone wanted one. Like I said, it was like the Stanley Cup level of popularity. People were posting themselves, getting a few, people were hoarding them. They'd show a picture of having like 5 of them, and it just became this thing. Up here in Canada, I don't think I ever saw one in an RV parts store ever, and it just became a legend. Then as the season progressed, there were some folks who were saying, well, you know, it's cool, but it doesn't work in all of them, and so they still need to keep their old one around, or, you know, there were some reasons why it wasn't, you know, the perfect elbow, even though it might be worth adding to my kit. My sewer elbow kit's actually kind of in a tub, so there's room for me to have a couple of these if I decide to get one day. But yeah, it was pretty funny to watch the whole world scramble for one. And if you have one and you want to send it to me, you mail me at rvingwithjoe@gmail.com, and I will pay you cash, especially if you're in Canada, so I don't have to deal with tariffs and taxes and borders. But it's a sad state of affairs when the most popular thing in RVing is a frickin' sewer tube.
And of course, from my perspective, I can't help but think about all the growth that this channel has seen, primarily because of viewers like you. So I really appreciate you subscribing and following this channel. But yes, we've seen growth in this channel. We reached over 24,000 subscribers this year, and then we broke off RVs Gone Wild as its own channel. Make sure you subscribe to that one. That's where all the RVs Gone Wild style videos are going to be happening from now on. And so I did lose a few people on this channel when I had everybody try out the new channel, but overall, we're still growing. We're still seeing more overall subscribers across the 2 channels. And again, I want to thank all of you who've been supporting this channel and enjoying this channel. Now, there's been a lot more trends, and I couldn't cover them all, but I would like it if you would comment below, and what are the trends you have seen in RVing this year? What's changing about RVing that you really noticed in 2025? Please comment below and check out the comments, because I'm sure I missed some good ones. And as we wind down 2025 and head into 2026,
I'm going to wish you a happy new year. Hope your Christmas was great. I hope your New Year's even better. And no matter what this year has in store for you, make sure you get out there and
get busy living.
I still think we'll see growth in the electrification. I still think we'll see growth in the electrification. I still think we'll see growth in electrification, just not maybe at the forced, you know,